you talked about there. And I've heard this one before that a female athlete will take off for 3 months after getting Osgood-Schlatter, and then she goes back, pain right back, and people are like, "We're so confused, we took off," and it's like, well, you shouldn't have taken a complete 3 months to shut it down, do nothing, and then you put her in the same environment again that caused it, and she's going 100 miles per hour again. Again, I don't think people are thinking about the spike in load, and it needs to be, like you said, a gradual lowering of the intensity to see if the pain kind of resolves a little bit and then slowly build back up while doing your strength training, sleep, good nutrition.
Yeah. So all the time is we're trying to find a level that they're coping with. The
Mhm.
more we boost the battery with good sleep, good nutrition, stuff like that, strength training, then we're going to give them more tolerance. But if we just drop them off a cliff and send them off doing nothing and then go back at the exact same level of training, it just goes to this does a boom and bust culture kind of translate?
Yes.
And so that's what we see, this roller coaster of pain spikes, rest, pain spikes, rest. And there's research out there that says Osgood's, with these kind of approaches, maybe could last like 3 years. Now, I have very, very few children. If we can keep them getting stronger, we can boost their capacity, and we can find a level of training that they can cope with. We don't have many kids that last that long. Every growth spurt, it might recur a little bit, but we then apply the same principles and we get them back on track again.
Yeah.
But
I
certainly, kind of going, you'll grow out of it. Well, that's a really long time. Kids don't finish growing till maybe they're 20.
yeah.
So we don't want to go, you're going to grow out of it. We don't want you to go do nothing, because none of that is going to help. It just drops their capacity even lower. So then the spike in activity becomes even greater.
Mhm. I just really love this advice that they need to find a level of training that they can cope with and the pain's not ruining their speed or their movement quality. I think that's so good. And so for the parents listening, if you have a young girl who's maybe in soccer season and then maybe she's doing a ton of skills training sessions on top of her practices and games and she still has knee pain, maybe cut back one skill session just a little bit at a time and see
Yeah.
how is that what you would recommend? Just one bit
Yep.
at a time to see if she responds?
It's kind of like, trying to think of it as a finding the right level of maybe medication.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need a little bit higher dose, sometimes you need a little bit less. And what's the optimal prescription, exercise prescription, that works for this athlete? And we went back to that mantra of, should we buy into the 12-year-olds do 12 hours? Well, a 12-year-old that is eating well, sleeping well, has been training for many, many years. We call it their training history. How many years have they been at it? They're going to have more resilience. So if that 12-year-old is in great shape, they're not injured, and basically they've put the hours in and the years in, then a 12-year-old might be able to do 20 hours of training. But equally, a 12-year-old who's relatively new to it, or they've had a period of time off through injury, and maybe they've got some digestive issues and they're not great sleepers, well, maybe they can tolerate 1 hour. So
Mm.
age isn't relevant. And within a squad, you've then got those kids who are early developers, and maybe they're a little bit stronger. But you might have a kid who's maybe 3, 4, or 5 years behind another kid in that same age group, and they're really going to find it tough to keep up. And so they're working a lot harder and they're going to get injured more readily.
Mhm. Now I want to touch on the nutrition piece because this one is so, so important. So can you just talk about what is going on physiologically with overuse injuries when athletes are under eating and they don't have the energy availability? Why are they more susceptible to Osgood-Schlatter or Severs?
So I think the important kind of messaging is, any child who is not getting enough energy for what they do, they're under fueling for the performance. So they are way more at risk of any injury to specifically the bone. And what we've been saying here is the majority of these overuse injuries are either bone stress or a stress on the point where the tendon attaches to the bone. So it's bone again. So when we're starting to think about overuse injuries that involve bones, then we are essentially thinking about having a good intake of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are bone's best friend. In much the same way as we got very excited about protein and how important protein was for muscle growth, I think we got obsessed with protein at the cost of carbohydrates. And I think carbohydrates for kids are just so important, particularly those slow release carbohydrates, having a mixture of carbs, and trying to get kids not to think about calories, but thinking about fueling for performance. If they're performing at the top of their game, they're not injured, they're not getting lots of sore throats and viruses, then effectively we can be pretty confident that they're getting enough energy to perform.